Did you just jump?
Do you know what that was, Joe? Joe, do you know what that was?
Bad exercising?
That was my happy jump.
Oh, for God's sakes. If that's your happy jump, we got to talk. So this is...
You know why it's my happy jump, Joe? Because
you get to see me?
My happy Iowa jump over Wisconsin. I just jumped right over Wisconsin.
Everybody jumped over Wisconsin yesterday. That was horrendous. We said months ago that the Iowa-Wisconsin game could be the worst offensive game in the history of football. I don't know if we were wrong. I really don't.
Oh, that was exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was who doesn't want to win, right? It was bad. I just kept thinking, man, we're missing a lot of this and that. And, I'm not going to harp on anybody in particular, but at the same time, it was a struggle. But anyway, congratulations to the Iowa Hawkeyes. Football in Wisconsin is not a great thing right now. It's a problem. It's a problem. So here's the thing, Jimmy. I'm just going to tell you, when we talk about football in Wisconsin, and my love for the Green Bay Packers. And so at the same time, there's this today right now is a perfect example of not when you don't prepare, when you don't look out in front, you end up in places that you don't want to be. Okay. And so I was getting ready for this show today, and I'm flying today out of Minneapolis. So I'm on the way. That's why I'm in the car. But I kept thinking, okay, so I'll go a little farther, and we're getting so close to the time of the show that I thought, all right, I just got to pull over and find a spot on the side and go from there. And wouldn't you know it, the next exit, like right behind me over here, well, right here, like right next, like down this road, is the Vikings practice facility. I'm not a Vikings fan by any stretch, but I'm like, now I'm like in their zone. So I'm going to get their aura. I understand that they're good and everything, but I don't like them. I don't like them, Jimmy. So here I am looking over my shoulder going, oh man, I'm so close. It's purple gold all over this place. Right there's purple and gold right here in this building. It's ridiculous. I don't like it at all.
You know what I thought you were going to tell me? I thought you were going to tell me this, is that you pulled over in one exit away and you just didn't quite make it there. Casey's General Food Store.
I'll get some Casey's. I always get some Casey's pizza.
That's right. So if you're joining us right now, I want to know this. What is the best gas station food pizza you have ever had? Because Casey's
loaded question.
Has to be number one.
Loaded question. That's ridiculous. So there's this battle going on right now between Quick Trip and Casey's, which makes me laugh hysterically because like Quick Trip put out a tweet that said, Casey's pizza is the best, but everything else is garbage or something like that. And then Casey's responds to their tweet by saying, all I heard was that Casey's has the best pizza. Thank you very much. And then they moved on. It was great. So I've been so interested. It's so funny. We can talk about how we tell stories and impacting narrative and everything like that. Have you noticed over the course of the last couple of years how social has changed in terms of businesses interacting and almost creating their own, almost just like creating their own lane in what they do in terms of
was it McDonald's and Wendy's that got into it a little bit, or somebody McDonald's and somebody or something recently? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're so smart about it. Like Kentucky Fried Chicken, what is it? They follow 11 or 11 people maybe or something like that. And they're all people named Herb or the Spice Girls, right? So it's 11 herbs and spices that's in their chicken. They follow 11 herbs and the Spice Girls. I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant. But and it's also kind of like we wouldn't be talking about it if they didn't like do stuff like that. So kudos to them. Kudos to all of the social, marketing manager people that are just really engaging their audience because it brings eyes to the table. It's going to bring people to them. So, I mean, anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent before we even get started, but I thought that was really interesting.
Joe, this is even before social media, 1999, City High versus the Trojans of West High. West High comes out with a bumper sticker, Joe. That's right. Not social media, but a bumper sticker that said, this is the year of the Trojans, because it was about going to the Dome for football.
Yeah.
And the Little Hawks, our school, came back with their own bumper sticker that said, every year is the year of the Little Hawks. See that? Even way back then, Joe, long before social media, they were already at it back and forth. So
I love it. I love that people are engaging in it. And I think that it just makes everything a little bit more real. And it does impact, I'm sure it impacts bottom line and everything that goes along with it. But at the same time, it's just good. It's good to see people interacting in a way that is engaging to the point. It's not always slamming and whatever, So
yeah,
I don't know. So how was your week, man? You're good? You had a good week?
Yeah, had a great week. It's still interesting to you, right? Because as you well know, I was at the NASSP Gala this weekend.
Yes,
it was just
congratulations.
Awesome. It was awesome to be a part of that again and just to be in that environment with everybody. It was so awesome. And the young lady from Connecticut who won, it was so awesome to watch that. And it was really cool. It's just a reminder again, right? That again, I think we're such a humble profession, but I think leaders even have even more difficult time trying to take credit for things, right? Such the servant mentality and wanting to dismiss it and give credit to other people. But it was nice on that night that night was about them, right? To hang out with them and to just see so many smiling faces, so many connections, so many laughter. But I was thinking as you were just saying that here we are in 2022, and I wasn't able to attend it, but I do know that they had a session still, right, in 2022, on the importance of using social media as a narrative to get your story out, right? That was still a major session for them, right? They had sessions on mental health, student leadership, and a plethora of other things. But, I just, for those of you who are listening and you get a chance to watch the recording, maybe perhaps I'm really going to encourage you to join us at NASSP this summer. Super excited about attending in July. It's going to be in Denver. And NASSP has not been together. I think this is going on to 3 years, Joe. So it'll be awesome. So for all of you who have never attended an NASSP event, I would strongly encourage you to join us here in Denver this summer for the National Association of Secondary School Principals Conference. So it'll be really, really awesome. So anyway, it was awesome. So just really, really blessed and grateful. They've just always been so good to me and continue to be really good to me, and invite me back to speak to that audience was, just a lot of fun. And it was cool, right, too, to bring Keela with me, too, to have her be a part of that environment, too. So that was awesome as well. So anyway, so what's on your mind today, buddy? What you got today? What you thinking?
Well, I think the thing that was really interesting to me is, first of all, congratulations on getting a chance to really talk to that group. I think that's really, it speaks to what the work that, that you're doing. It speaks to the connection that you have with that group. So congratulations on that. And I'm looking forward to the summer, too. I think we're going to have a great time at NASSP and hopefully bring a lot of people in and just get excited about some of the work. And it's really interesting that you say that about having like a social media session, because I think what ended up happening, I think we've talked about this before, that the idea that the whole concept of telling your school story, telling your leadership story, I think at some point got watered down a little bit. And it's like, it's just a statement that is made, like we have to do it. Well, I think, that's for me, it's like telling me, hey, you got to get healthy. Well, I understand that. Okay. But give me something, give me some leverage points that's going to give me some momentum along the way. And so I think about the, transferring from telling your school story to leveraging the narrative, leveraging the impact of all these stories, because it's not just about telling, it's about making sure that you engage. It's the same thing with the Quick Trip and Casey's. It's engaging. It brings you there. If you can bring people, if you can bring eyes to the positivity that's going on, there's a better chance when the negativity hits that you've built enough social capital to move forward. So I think, and I guess maybe I'm thinking about it because I did that. I was walking to school yesterday and talking about this whole concept of giving yourself a chance. Because if you think about everything that we've talked about here, everything that we've kind of connected on online, everything that you've written, everything that I've written, everything that we've written collectively, there are no guarantees that any of that stuff is going to be the leverage point for you to move forward. It just gives you a chance. And I think if we can continue to keep ourselves in that mindset that everything that we're doing is trying to give yourself the best chance, then we treat it a little bit differently, because then we're not invested in the end game of this is the one thing, right? Like, and if it doesn't work, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wasted all that time. It didn't even work. It might not, and that's okay, right? So if you keep thinking about what these leverage points are, these opportunities to give you the best chance, and the analogy that I made yesterday is my son is a runner, and he always, I always, when he's running around the track, I always yell one thing at him. I always say, give yourself a chance, because I know that if he gives himself a chance, if he keeps it close, more often than not, he's going to find a way to catch the group in front of him. And I asked him how he does it. And he said that with every step he gets closer, he gets a little bit more belief that it can happen, right? And he gets a little more adrenaline that it can happen. And so when you keep it close and give yourself a chance, you know that there's an opportunity for you to get to the end, get to the win, get to the whatever, but just give yourself a chance, right? Because we don't do that enough. We don't give ourselves a chance. We're looking for the one thing and thinking that that's going to be it. And it's not. We don't know what's going to work, but give yourself a chance, whatever that is, to build some momentum along the way. And hopefully in doing that, you find yourself in a place that you feel valued in the work. The other thing that I thought about was the two, my kids kind of go about this whole track thing a little bit differently. Kale, my son, who's now in college, is talking about like, what's the time I need? What's the, what do I got to get? What's the record? What's the this, what's that? And he's really kind of, that's what drives him. Allie is a pole vaulter, and she loves the process. Like, she loves practice. She said to me on multiple occasions, I wish we could just practice. Sometimes I don't even like doing the meets, right? Like, I wish I could just be there with my friends and get better. And that's, so she loves the process. So it's really interesting to me that they take it on two different ways. And to be really honest, I think if you love the process more than the end product, you're going to end up being better in the long run, because you're not fixated on the end piece of it. You're fixated on getting better every day.
Joe, when you were talking about there, I started realizing that I'm going to go ahead and allow you to be dumb, and I'll be dumber, because all I kept thinking was, so you're saying I've got a chance?
Okay.
That's where my mind immediately went.
Right. Well, when we go to NASSP this summer, we'll get an orange tux and a blue tux, and we'll walk into the room like that.
There you go.
That'll bring everybody there. Everybody will leave. Everybody will be like, yeah, these guys, yeah, they're fun and everything. I'm not going to learn anything, so I'm out.
It's kind of like what you're saying about Allie talking about the process, right? Because the reality is some people love the preparation, right? They love to prepare for things. It's the competing that sometimes, sometimes it creates a lot of anxiety, or they get nervous, or they worry, or, what if I don't win, those types of things. But I do think the preparation is really important. I know you tease about this all the time, the 8 running, but people who do train for half marathons and marathons, especially a marathon, I remember training for one and thinking, oh my God, I am running a half marathon every weekend, right? The win was already in the training. I'd already run 8 half marathons before I ever ran the marathon. So it didn't really matter what happened in the marathon. I'd already achieved the goal of saying, oh my God, because I still remember on Wednesdays on towards the end of my training, Wednesdays were the long days in the sense of mid long days, because it was 10 miles usually on a Wednesday in this training program. The weekends would go 12, 13, back to 10, 14, 15, back to 12, whatever. And, but I remember I used to say, hey, I'll be right back. I got to go run 10 miles really quick, right? It's weird, that mindset, how it shifts and changes over time, because you've run it so many times. It does feel like, hey, I just got to go out there and do this really quick and I'll be right back. But as you're talking about, giving ourselves a chance, I was just reflecting on how we as educators, whether we're teachers in the classroom, whether we're principals in a building or superintendents in a district, how do we give the people that we supervise or the people that we teach a chance, right? So that story of going from the classroom to the student, how are we giving kids feeling like they have a chance, right? That they're going to be successful because they have a chance, because teachers are providing that opportunity for kids in the classroom. And we as school leaders are providing the same thing for our adults, right, in the building. And so, okay, so here's a practical thing to think about. I'm just thinking about this whole social media thing again, Joe. And you like to think, I'd like to think that every administrator out there right now is telling the story of their school, right? And I know some people do it better than others, but I do know that there's still a population of administrators that are still not on social media, right? For whatever reason, we're not going to judge it. However, I do think there is a benefit, and there's a lot, obviously many benefits, I should say. But one thing is that it is sometimes challenging is, how do I get my students and my faculty and my families involved in social media? And so one thing to kind of be strategic about it, right? There's lots of ways to do that, right? But one thing that I remember is it kind of goes back to that notion that every time you bring a group of people together, it's an opportunity to build community. So imagine that you're having, imagine you're going to have parent conferences. So what if prior to parent conferences, you had every parent come to a commons area, cafeteria, an auditorium, whatever, and say, hey, we're going to meet for 20 minutes before we send you out to visit your teachers and all that. But while you have the parents there, you know, one thing as leaders we could do is say, hey, listen, I want to show you something just real quick. Take a look at this and take a look at this and see what's up on the screen. If we were intentional, strategic, we could put TweetDeck up on the screen. Okay. I'm going to make this up. We're going to say, it's going to say hashtag Go Crickets. And up on the screen, you had your hashtag Go Crickets, right? And then I would say, what parents right here in the audience right now are connected on social media, specifically on Twitter, right? And let's say there's 100 parents in the auditorium and only 15 or 10 parents raise their hand. Then I would say to those 10 parents, will you do me a favor? I want to show the rest of the parents here that are here tonight something. Would you do me a favor? For those of you who are already on Twitter know how to use it, would you share something out great about Fall Creek schools? And would you put the hashtag Go Crickets there for me? Would you do that right now? And then we would pause, we would let them do that. And then they could watch the thread move as people were tweeting with the Go Crickets, right? And that would go through there. And then we would explain, say, hey, if you haven't been connected on Twitter, this is an opportunity to be able to follow your school, right? To see the things that are happening at school. It's a great way to connect. So here's what we have in place tonight. When you were finished here and you go out and leave, there are students and there are faculty out there who are at tables ready to show you how to connect on social media. They will show you how to open an account. They will show you how to send a tweet. They will show you how to tag the hashtag. They will show you how to use it. And I think that intentionality of building that community, of being really intentional, that every time you brought a group of families together, if you were that intentional, you could continue to gain following and allow people to see how to use the social media. And what I always loved about that is that students and teachers were also involved in that, doing the teaching. And then you could even set up digital classes, right, for families. Hey, tonight while you're here, if you like this, you enjoy this, feel free. In 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a class. If you're interested after school or whatever, if you want to stop by, students and teachers can teach those classes. So I was just thinking that as a practical way to maybe to gain more followers for those who maybe aren't as invested or have not been able to get as many followers on that specific platform. Because I think most families really do use Facebook, but not so much Instagram and Twitter and those other types of accounts. So.
Yeah. Anyway, any kind of leverage point that you can get in there, I think helps in the long run. And the thing about social media that we've found over the course of the last 5 years in particular is that social matters in social media. It can't just be a bulletin board. That's why I have a hard time with telling your school story, right? That's how I have a hard time with just saying telling it, because now you're just telling it. You're not engaging in the conversation. Social is important. Doing things like, you know, we try to get a lot of engagement on our spaces by asking questions. We work with a group in Wisconsin called Social School for EDU, and Andrea Gribble runs that company, and they are phenomenal. They are absolutely phenomenal. They are invested in their groups. They work with a number of districts across the state and across the country even. And one of the things that's really important in working with them is they are fully invested in engagement. Right. So how are we getting more eyes on the page, but how are we interacting with people? You know, things like Throwback Thursday, or name, you know, when different things come up during the course of the year. Remember when this happened, or whatever the case is, and tell me who these, you know, former staff members are and what the impact that they had on you is, or whatever the case may be. But at least we're engaging in the community. And I think the thing that is really important about that is we have to remember that 80% of the voting public don't have kids in school. So 80% of the voting public are making a judgment about schools based on what happened to them when they were in school, or to their kids when their kids were in school. And so if that's the case, we put ourselves in a situation where a lot of people are talking about school based on what happened to them 25 years ago. So the thing that's really interesting is I think a lot of parents across the country, when you ask them about their school, they're like, we love our school. Our school is fantastic, right? Every other school is awful, but our school is fantastic, right? We love our school. But think about it. If the people who don't get a chance to see that stuff every day aren't invested in it, if you're not investing in that 80%, then what are we really doing? Because those people tell stories too. So don't forget to leverage the stories, the great stories of the past, to connect for momentum for the future, right? So what are we doing to engage those people as well? And I think if we can talk to our parents about it and build it's like the other thing, Jimmy, is how we're building momentum. It's not like, we can put stuff out and it can get no run, or we can put something else out, it's going to get a ton of run. But a lot of times it's like you said, it's in the intention of what we do. If I do a podcast with let's say with 2 kids, let's say I do a podcast with 2 kids in a 2nd grade class, and I have a great conversation with those kids, and I'm just going to post it out to all of our social media feeds. Well, I can do that, and hopefully people will hear these great voices of these kids, or I can go back to my office and I can call the parents of those 2 kids and tell them that, hey, I'm going to put this out on our social media feed in the next 15 minutes. I wanted you to know first because it was a great conversation, and I know you'd want to hear it. So what do you think those 2 parents are doing for the next 15 minutes? Refresh. They want to be the first people to share it. And that gives us some momentum, because then it's not us saying, look at us. It's other people getting some momentum for us in terms of what we do.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I'm looking at the thread here right now, Joe, and I see Josh is on here. By the way, Frank Pullen thinks the Walmart where he's talking about has the best ribs, and I don't know how many other foods he mentioned, Frank, but we got to check that out. Tony Mart, he says, Tony Mart, Port Washington, Ohio. I said Walmart. I don't know where I got the Walmart. Or I guess it's kind of a Walmart. I don't know what that says. Company Walmart. But I don't know. Out east, Frank, people believe in Wawa. They believe in Sheetz. I don't know. Quick Trip, middle of the road. Yep, I get it. What is that? Buc-ee's down south now. I see Buc-ee's signs everywhere you go, right?
I did. And, I had a barbecue sandwich from there one time, and I thought, it's really good. that's better than it should be. Let's be real honest about that.
You must have been desperate for that. So hey, we're talking here. I don't know how we got in the conversation, but we just got a conversation of telling your story, social media. I know Josh Tovar's on here. I know he does an amazing job with the school. The last 2 schools he's been at, actually. So keep up the great work, Josh. But if others have a story, or you want to put some ideas in the thread, or you want to jump in the studio with us and share a couple thoughts on that, that would be great. Let us know. We'll put the thread in here if you want to jump in with us and share some of the things that you're doing to tell the story. But it isn't always about social media, right, Joe? There's a bazillion ways to share the story.
Right.
I do know blogging is a great way for administrators to share on their platforms all the great things that are happening at the school. I still believe when parents move into communities, they do their research, right? They do check around. And I think when we get blogs written by families and students and staff about all the great things happening in the community, I think that's another great way to connect. I think just about maybe 3 weeks ago or a month ago, we talked the importance of administrators giving a weekly memo of some sort. Again, that intentionality behind the connecting. So how are we constantly communicating with our audiences? But here's the thing, when it comes to being kind of like that connected educator, right? We always talk about this, that the best connection is still face-to-face. And I think that's what Joe was talking about earlier. Even though we're using the tools to do it, there's an intentionality behind it to go engage with these people face-to-face, because it can't just be us telling our story. And I think that's the message that we're trying to say, is that the run that we'll get, the momentum that we'll get, it's because other people are sharing our story. They're carrying the banner for us. So that intentionality matters. The gift of time matters. And what are some things that we're doing in our schools right now? When we think about family engagement, or when we think about community engagement with the businesses, it can't just be a one-way street. There's got to be some benefit for them, right? We can't just keep taking and taking and taking. And more importantly, how do we give back? And I think that's really important too. And if it's not you personally, obviously we're not saying that, but how is the school community? How are the students? What is the staff doing? What are we doing to be intentional to bring our community in, just to celebrate them? We don't want anything from you. We don't want you to pay for our breakfast. We don't want you to donate anything. We just want you to come to our school because we want to honor you. So how are we doing those at events and being really intentional in doing that? Because it really does take a community. And so those connections are really, really important.
Yeah, I think that's important too. I also think that if we can figure out a way to engage them, then they're going to, if they're sitting in a spot where they don't know the answer and we help them with the answer, they're more likely to talk about the work that we're doing. So it's that whole mentality of, in the absence of knowledge, people tend to make up their own, right? Like when they don't know what you do, they make up what you do. But let's be really honest about this, Jimmy. That's not just a school thing. That's a leadership thing too. And one of the things that has happened with the social media piece of it is when you tell your story, your school story through this piece, but when you also tell the leadership story of where you are and what you're doing and who you're connecting with, it gives you some social capital when people don't know what you do, because you can't be in every classroom, in every space all the time, every day, right? But when you can document where you are, then people don't make up where you are, right? And I think that ends up happening a lot with leaders, is when people don't know what they do, they make up what they do. And that ends up being a big problem, because when they make up what they do, it's not always a great thing that they make up. So how do you put yourself in a situation that says, I'm here, I'm this place, I'm that spot, we're doing this, we're doing that, that kind of stuff has been, I think, it gives you some tremendous momentum in terms of what the work is. And there's all kinds of ways to do it from a social standpoint. Like, again, it's social media, but then there's also the social connection. If you see a teacher doing a great thing in school, and in our school, we have teachers, we have a lot of kids of teachers in our school. So if you see a teacher doing a great thing, have you gone to the child of that teacher and tell that child how great their mom or their dad is and what you just saw them do? Like, that ends up building some momentum along the way. Or calling a spouse of one of your teachers just to say, hey, saw him teach a lesson with noodles and marshmallows today, and it was really cool. I really loved it, and I thought you'd want to hear about that, because she made kids smile in a way that not a lot of people can, and that was really cool. Because I think a lot of times people in our building walk between two places where they don't know if they have value. And though the people at home love us, they don't always know what we do. And so again, then they make up what we do. And it's not always, and a lot of times the people at home get the worst part of this job, because we got to unload somewhere. So if we can be the connector to that, if we can help connect, create a bridge between school and home for people, that just makes it easier for them to have conversations and know when you go home, the people at home know that you're valued at school. I think those two environments change substantially.
I think that value thing is important. Just let me ask you a question. So here's what I was reflecting on this weekend. So we got all these people together, right? These estate award winners and so forth. And again, it was just so powerful, right? Just to see where people are at. So you go back to that kind of that face-to-face interaction, that connection, bringing value to people. Mm-hmm. So then the question becomes this, then why do you think then that so many conferences are struggling with attendance? If it really is about connection and face-to-face, is it because, they're during COVID, right? There was this big push that, look at all these things we can do virtually.
Right.
But then at the same time, it seemed very convenient. People liked it for a while, but then after a while, we just kind of got that Zoom fatigue and thought, we really need to get back to face-to-face, right? So I was listening to a podcast here recently, just in the business world, how that really just continues not to be a great business model. It's not really healthy for people, right? It won't sustain, that people need human interaction. And so then you think, okay, well, here's this going to come back. But I don't know. Is it just because there's so many options out there, because there's so many different things? I mean, I don't know why ISTE and ASCD decided to come together, right? I don't know the reasons for that. But I have to believe that part of the reason is attendance is not as strong as it used to be, right? We know this. We look at the conferences, either in a conference like NAESP or NASSP, those conferences. I don't know if it's just because there's so many other options. Is it because people just, I don't know. I have no idea what it's caused that over time. Mm-hmm. But I mean, even model schools that we used to do, I mean, these places used to have thousands and thousands of people, right? Now they have 1,000, 1,500 people, maybe 2,000, still a lot of people, but half of what they used to have, right? And a lot of these conferences. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or what's causing this. Where's the platform? Where are people going? Maybe the audience can answer that. Why do you go to a conference, and why do you choose not to go to a conference? Is it just too many options, too many things? But some conferences still do, very well. The traditional ones, right? But a lot of them are small, right? You go and, you'll have 150 people there at an event, right? Or 200 people. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Maybe some people want it limited, but I think there's some of the reason. I don't know what it is, but I just always find it really interesting.
I think a couple things go into it, and one is just getting away. Like sometimes depending on the time of the year, feeling like you're getting out of your building can be almost more work for you if you get out of your building to go do one of these events. At the same time, when you're pulling back on the learning piece of it, and I understand that. And the other thing I think that happens from a leadership lens is if we're going to a conference, but yet we're not, our staff members aren't going to conferences, then there's the disconnect there. And so we're actually trying to get our people back to get to face-to-face conferences if we can. We used to go take people to a lot of stuff, and hopefully we can get back into that spot because it's starting to come back on a regular basis. And I think we're taking a group to McCall in Michigan in the spring. And ironically, it's the group that we took a couple years ago, and their conference got cut short because it was the day that all schools in Michigan shut down for COVID. So I'm like, well, you guys got to at least get a conference. Let's get you back to that conference so you can actually go to the conference. And I think what we'll find is I think that there'll be a steady increase in what it looks like, because what ends up happening is you go to these conferences and you get connected to people, and it's such a great experience because you're back in the spot and you're connecting and you're learning and you're networking. And then you're thinking, oh, I want more of that. Like, give me more of that. And I think that ends up building some momentum. I think it's going to take a little bit longer, because you think about up until a couple of years ago, there was great attendance, but did it always start that way? Or did that build up over time too? And then all of a sudden you take this hit and now it's going to start to build up again. So I think that I do think it's going to come back. I think a lot of times, like we were both doing conferences for the last couple of years, and they would have a virtual option and an in-person option. And that just ended up being real clunky. But at the same time, that's kind of where we needed to be at that time. And we even do it right now. I run that the district administrators aspiring superintendent academy. And we take aspiring superintendents from all over the country, and we meet in person for 3 days. And then we have 6 days of virtual time together. And without question, the 3 days on site are easily the best days, because you're all there, you're learning, you're growing, you're knowing new people. The next 6 are great. They're fine. I love them. But at the same time, there's just something about those 3 days, and everybody knows it, right? So I think when you get that sense of, oh my gosh, here's what this feels like again, I think that's going to end up coming back.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it right now, right? I know the reasons, or a lot of the reasons right now, maybe perhaps now or just in the last year or so, it's have a really hard time finding subs. And, I do know that even some conferences people plan to go, and then the day that they're going to go or leave, then all of a sudden they can't because they need them in the building. So that I get, and that's not really what I'm talking about, because I think that trend was already starting long before the pandemic ever hit, right? But still, it could be, I guess, maybe because of cutback in dollars, maybe, whatever. It could just be cost, right? And again, I do believe that some people just don't like being out of the building. It's a lot of work for teachers when they got to be gone to prepare. Sometimes they worry about what's going to happen to their kids, the loss of learning. They come back, they've got issues they've got to deal with. But I still think when the teachers or administrators attend, they love these conferences, right? Most people tend to have a great experience. And so I don't know how to get, how people can get past that. But I do think as leaders, I think one takeaway is I'm not sure it should be an option to opt out, right? I'm not so sure teachers should be able to say, I don't want to go to any conferences, or I never want to attend any PD outside my building. I think we have to build a culture and a community where teachers want that to be a part of it, to create that experience, to model that we're learners too, right? Everybody needs that little breakaway. Everybody needs an opportunity to go and gather and collect. And I do think leaders strategically can take groups of people, because I think it's great bonding. I think it's great connections. I think we can learn a lot about each other. We build that community. We build that trust, right? And we're able to have opportunities to have conversations, on that trip, whether it's in a vehicle or whether it's on a plane or whether it's at the actual conference, to come together, to go out for dinner, to celebrate. I mean, we can't play it both ways. I mean, that's what I worry about sometimes. I think sometimes educators, we can be a little bit of a whiny bunch. And I feel like we can say that because we see that sometimes. We play it both ways. We say one thing, but then when given the opportunity, it's like we don't want it and then be able to complain about it. So, and I think we can all fall victim to that, regardless of what that profession is. So it's just a reminder again that I do think we have to build that culture. We have to build that trust. We have to say to our staff, hey, listen, we are going to, over the next 3 years, we're going to rotate through, and we want different people to have those experiences. Because what happens unintentionally, Joe, there is an undercurrent sometimes created, and I see this, is that there's an appearance of favoritism, because oftentimes we do invite the same people these teacher leaders to go on these conferences, and it's the same people going. And then that builds a little division and a resentment from other staff who they play it both ways. I don't want to go, but I want to complain about the people who always get to go, right? And there's a little bit of that. So, but again, I think that's that cultural piece, and how can we build that trust in that community. But I do believe that we should create experiences and expect, and that should be one of the expectations as we bring staff on. Hey, one of the things we do here is we will expect you to go on some sort of, now again, the truth of the matter is, if I have a young parent who just had a baby, I'm not going to ask her to go away for two nights at a conference, because who's going to take care of the child? And I get that, right? Whether your dad or your mom, sometimes there'll be those family obligations. But I've got to believe at some point we can create the opportunities for people, because they are powerful and they are needed. And I do think people do enjoy them when they get the opportunity.
I agree. I think they do too. And I think if we give them I think if you make the experience palatable the way that they want it, then when they get there, they're like, oh, this was really a great experience, and I'd like to do that again. And I think that's one of the things that I hope that we can do in the future, because we've gotten away from it. And maybe the first step is just asking, hey, who wants to do it? Who wants to go? And you might get a group of people that you wouldn't have thought that would want to, and kind of go from there. So I think the more
find out those who don't volunteer, maybe why they're not volunteering, right? And maybe they do have some personal stuff going on right now. It's just not a good time. It's not that they don't want to; they want to, but right now is not the right time for them.
I agree.
And probably would do it at a later time. So, and Amy Wright, AMP's on the line. She says, "Hey, that's right. It's a reminder again that how we be intentional when we come back. That sharing, that learning, that PD teachers learning from teachers. We know that's a great opportunity as well, and so we can be really intentional." Joe Sanfilippo, listen, I need to get you to the airport. I do not want you to be late. I know you're going to have to stop somewhere along the line. If you don't have any food in that car right now, it's just a matter of time, buddy. It's a matter of time. Is that a Reese's?
There it is. Reese's Peanut Butter Cup right there.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. There you go, Joe. Joe, I didn't know we were doing advertisements on our show now, but I bet Reese's is going to reach out right now and want us to be a sponsor for them after that.
Well,
that's amazing.
Did we have this conversation last week that anybody who thinks that the Reese's cups are as good as the seasonal Reese's things, like the tree or the pumpkin or the heart, if you think that those are the same, you're out of your mind. These are substantially better, and Reese's should just do seasonal stuff all year. That's how it should work. And you're welcome, Reese's.
No, let me ask you this. I have to ask this question now that you brought up this whole question about how things taste. Why is it that you can have the same product, let's just say Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, and then you get Reese's Minis, and why do the Minis never taste as good as the original? They just don't.
We don't have time for that today.
Joe. Try it. Audience there, anything, you try that. Why is it the Minis are never as good as the original? They just aren't, Joe.
You know what, Jimmy, you're wrong, and we'll talk about this next time. And I'll tell you why you're wrong. It's not even about the taste. It's that you got to do so much work to get to the candy. That weighs on your mind. And then when you're eating, you're like, did I do all the work? Did I have to do all the work? I could just open it up. I mean, it's like they got like 3 layers of packaging in those minis. Like, why do you need 3? You don't need 3. Ridiculous.
I agree.
All right. I gotta go.
Have a food show. We're just having the food show. We just have the weekly food show.
That's right. All right.
That's right.
All right, brother.
All right.
Be good. I'll talk to you next week. All right, my friend.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Have a great day, guys.
All right. Take care.